Some leadership lessons come from books, some come from mentors, and some come from stress, disappointment, turnover, missed goals, difficult conversations, and nights when you just lay awake wondering, how did I get here? How did I let this situation get so far out of control? I've been leading people for decades, and I can tell you this. I've made mistakes. I've trusted too much. I've waited too long to address problems. I have assumed people understood expectations that I never really clearly explained. And I've poured enormous amounts of time and myself into people who had no intention of changing for the better. And I once believed that if I simply worked harder than everyone else, excellence would eventually win the day. Leadership will humble you, but if you're willing to look honestly at what went wrong, the lessons that hurt the most can actually make you a stronger leader. Today, I want to share 6 leadership lessons that I learned the hard way. Real stories, real situations, not from a textbook, not from a corporate seminar, but from actually leading people, and how to not lose yourself in the process. Okay, here we go. Welcome to another episode of the Leading Life Podcast, where we talk practical wisdom for leadership and life. I'm your host, Andy Zook, and I've learned that leadership is about how we show up for people, how we navigate change, and how we continue growing. Right now on today's episode, Leading Without Losing Yourself, 6 lessons I learned the hard way. And I mean the hard way. Welcome to the Leading Life Podcast, where we talk about what it takes to grow, lead, and live with purpose. And my promise to you always is no fluff, no empty motivation, just real tools that you can use today. I'm your host, Andy Zook. Let's get into it. I want to walk you through examples of when I got so caught up in trying to be the best leader for my people that I actually stopped being the best leader for my people. I got way more caught up in being liked that it ultimately hurt me. And I don't want that to happen to you. Lesson number 1, your example is not enough. Early in my leadership career, I believed something that sounds completely reasonable. If I model excellence, well, other people will follow my example. Yes, smart people will. But not everybody's there, right? I thought if I worked with urgency, treated customers amazing, stayed organized, supported the team, and held myself to a high standard, the people around me would naturally begin to do the same. Most of the time they did. The right people will, but many times they didn't. You can work tirelessly to demonstrate excellence, but that does not mean everyone will automatically follow your model. Some people will admire your work without knowing how to reproduce it. Some people may feel overwhelmed by the standards you set. Some may not understand even why you do it. And some people simply may not care enough to make the investment. That doesn't mean modeling the right behavior is unimportant. A leader must demonstrate that gold standard, but leadership is not just modeling. You got to teach behind it. You got to coach. You got to explain. You got to reinforce, and you got to inspect what you expect. You cannot simply move quickly throughout the workplace and expect everyone to absorb your habits through osmosis. Leadership is not a mirror. People do not automatically reflect everything you demonstrate. Your example establishes credibility, but your coaching turns that example into a respectable standard. Ask yourself, have I actually taught my people how to perform at the level I expect? Or have I been just silently expecting them to figure it out by watching me? Model the standard, but coach people toward it. I cannot tell you the amount of energy wasted waiting for people to follow my lead over the years. I had a team a few years back that I was asked to take over, but this team just flat out refused to learn. They were just stuck in their own way for the past 10 years, and they fought me at every level. Their service scores were in the bottom. Operations were completely micromanaged and overly complicated. They were failing. Did I improve the team? Yes. Obviously, service scores were back up high, and I made simplified operations. Everybody knew their role. They thought their way was working, and it wasn't. But it just took too long to get there. I wasted too much time thinking they were going to follow my lead. Which leads us to lesson 2. Set crystal clear expectations from the beginning. This is another big mistake I made. I assumed people understood what was expected, like we have our company vision, mission, and all the goals. But I was always so afraid of micromanaging, there's that losing myself piece, that I believed certain standards were just obvious. Be on time, communicate problems, follow our goals, complete the assignments, treat your coworkers respectfully, follow through on your commitments. But when expectations remain vague like that, people will usually create their own interpretation. That's the key. Their own interpretation of what acceptable performance looks like. That's where the problems begin. If you do not establish the boundaries of the job, people will test them. It's human nature. They may not always do it maliciously, but human beings naturally look for the limits of any environment. How late is too late coming to work? How much effort is really enough? How quickly do I need to respond? What happens when I miss a deadline? How seriously does this leader really take this standard? If you fail to answer those questions clearly, your team will answer them for you, and you don't want that. That is why expectations should be established from the beginning. Have the meeting, put the expectations in writing, explain the reason behind them, and give people an opportunity to ask questions. And then ask them to repeat that expectation back to you. Do not confuse giving instruction with creating clarity. Clarity often feels repetitive to the leader long before it becomes clear to the team. You may have said it once, you may have sent an email, you may have mentioned it during a busy meeting. That does not necessarily mean everyone understands it. But a great leader creates clarity around what needs to be done, who owns it, when it needs to be completed, what successful execution looks like, and what happens when the standard is not met. People should never have to guess where they stand with you. When expectations are clear, accountability becomes fair. Without clarity, accountability can feel arbitrary. And never assume that silence means understanding. It usually doesn't. Same issue with the same team I mentioned in the first example. I didn't set clear expectations outside our daily conversations and what was posted on the wall for our vision and mission and goals to get there. There needed to be a meeting, and I needed to explain it to them right away and what the consequences were if we didn't follow through. So don't let that happen to you. Set those expectations right away and make them clear to the team. Lesson 3, what you do not address will get worse. I think this is one of the hardest leadership lessons of all because problems rarely improve because you ignore them, right? That would be obvious, but yet we allow it. When someone is repeatedly late, address it. When performance is slipping, address it. When someone is creating negativity, address it. Document the pattern, have the conversation, explain the impact, set a clear expectation for improvement, and establish what will happen next. Too many leaders delay these conversations because they want to avoid conflict. And it's something I like to say, there is nothing like flavor of the week for your people when you don't follow up. And so leaders ourselves, we sort of make excuses. We tell ourselves, oh, maybe they were just having a bad day. Oh, I don't want to overreact to this. Or let's give it another week. Or maybe they're going through a difficult time. I remember this one person that I had work for me for years. Every time I had an accountability conversation, they would come through with this, I'm going through so much right now. And it got to be the same thing over and over. And I'm like, hey, you know what? We're all going through a lot of stuff right now, but here's your accountability role in this job, and I'm going to hold you to it. We can be empathetic. We can understand context. People deserve our humanity, but empathy without accountability eventually becomes permission. The longer you allow a behavior to continue, the harder it becomes to correct. The employee begins believing that behavior is acceptable. Then other team members begin noticing that the standard is optional. Your strongest performers may even begin wondering why they are working so hard when someone else is allowed to repeatedly fall short. That is how one unaddressed problem begins damaging your entire culture. If someone is late, they're all late. You don't need to humiliate them. You don't need to lose your temper, but you do need to deal with reality. Hey, it's simple as this. Come to them and say, you have been late 3 times this month. Here is the expectation. Maybe explain to me what is happening, it's what's causing this, and let's talk about what needs to change. That's not being hard or unfair. That's leadership. A hard conversation today will prevent a much harder decision tomorrow. I had a team member a couple years ago that really had all the potential in the world. I firmly believe this. I saw all the promise in this person. They were driven and they were organized to a T, but they weren't a team player. They were extremely difficult, purposely difficult. They were angry often. They called out often. They were mean-spirited and dramatic over everything. I knew everything about this person was wrong for us, but I kept trying to give them chances based on the promise that I knew they could be good. But what that did was eventually pull my behavior away from the team members that wanted to strive and do well and were doing all the right things. Listen, what you permit, you eventually promote. Not because you publicly approve of that behavior, but because your unwillingness to confront it sends the message that it's tolerated. Be fair, be compassionate, listen carefully, but hold the line. Real quick interjection. If you like what you are hearing so far on the Leading Life podcast and this is having impact on you, then please hit that little bell that enables you to subscribe or the follow button or whatever you have on your platform so you don't miss future episodes. I'd appreciate it. All right, let's get back to it. Lesson 4, always build the bench. Never wait till someone quits to begin thinking about who could replace them. Never wait until a leader burns out to begin developing the next leader in line. Never wait until a crisis to ask who else knows how to do this. You must constantly be building your bench. That means recruiting, cross-training, teaching, mentoring, developing talent, and creating opportunities for people to grow. This is not about treating people as disposable. I don't believe everyone is interchangeable at all. Great people bring unique value, relationships, and experience. Losing the right person can really hurt, but there is a major difference between valuing someone and allowing your entire operation to become dependent upon them. No employee should be able to hold a business hostage because they are the only person who understands a process, maintains a relationship, or possesses a critical skill. And honestly, that includes the leader. If everything falls apart the moment you take a vacation, you don't have a strong organization. You have dependency. Strong leaders develop people who can eventually operate without them standing in the middle of it. Build the bench means who could step into this position tomorrow, who is showing leadership potential, who needs additional training, and where are our knowledge gaps. Do not develop people because you're waiting for someone to fail. Develop people because growth, change, promotion, relocation, and expectation departures are part of every organization. Build the bench before you need the bench. That's not disloyalty, but it's responsible leadership. Don't lose yourself in your current crew thinking you've got everything you need. This comes up a lot when I talk to leaders. You need to be recruiting all the time. You have to be in a recruiting mindset constantly and have names, I would say 3 to 5 names of people that you would want to bring into your team. Some of the best people that I have brought into my teams have been based on recommendations from people I knew. So, build the bench before you need the bench. Lesson 5, hard work alone does not win. This lesson can be uncomfortable because we've been taught from our child, especially my generation and the generations before us, that hard work will always pay off. And yes, ultimately it does. Hard work matters, discipline matters, consistency matters, your effort matters, but hard work alone, I'm here to tell you, does not guarantee a promotion. It won't lead you to more money or recognition or influence or opportunity. There are people who work their fingers to the bone for years and remain stuck in the same position. They get there early, they stay late, they carry enormous workloads, they become exhausted, and they're still overlooked. Why is that? Why did they lose themselves? Because effort and impact are not always the same thing. You can work incredibly hard on tasks that do not move the organization forward. You can become excellent at work that leadership does not consider strategically valuable. You can quietly solve problems while assuming someone will eventually notice. And you can work harder and harder without ever clearly communicating that you really want to grow. That is why we have to talk about working smart. And working smart does not mean avoiding hard work. It means you're directing your hard work toward the right outcomes. That's all it is. You understand the mission. You are identifying the problems that matter the most. You develop valuable skills. You build relationships and you communicate your results, asking for feedback along the way. It means making your career goals known. The number one thing that I run into when I talk to people that say they want to get promoted is they can never tell me what that means. They just want the next thing. They don't even know if they like the next thing, and they don't even know what the next thing is. You have to understand how your performance connects to revenue, clients, efficiency, quality, retention, and growth. All of those things. Do not simply ask how much work did I complete today, but what valuable result did my work create? See the difference? Stop confusing exhaustion with effectiveness. Being overwhelmed is not proof that you are succeeding. Busyness is not the same as progress. Hard work is the fuel, but strategy is the steering wheel. You need both. So, you need to be clear about your intentions. You need to put your hard work and energy into the things that are going to give you and your business the most growth. All right, lesson 6. Stop trying to rescue people who refuse to participate in their own growth. Okay, Let me tell you something that I have learned after wasting enormous amounts of emotional energy. You cannot help someone more than they are willing to help themselves. Please hear that. There are people that are broken and they want to remain broken. I hate saying that, but I have learned this over the years. Let me say it again. You cannot help someone more than they are willing to help themselves. They're going to tell you how unfair everything is. They're going to be in this victim mindset. They will describe all the people who have wronged them. They will explain why nothing is their fault. You will listen. You will offer solutions. You'll coach. You'll create a plan. And then they will do absolutely nothing. A week later, they return with the same complaint. What they wanted was not necessarily coaching at all. What they wanted was an audience. And guess what? You're it. I remember I had this one peer that would call me with this major dilemma. And then I would talk to my peers, and this person talked to each of them with the same dilemma. They didn't really want to improve. They just wanted an audience. I think they would even call me going, I'm only sharing this with you. I'm only being vulnerable with you. But it went out to like 10 other people. They wanted validation without accountability. They wanted you to confirm that everyone else was the problem so they don't have to look in the mirror. And when you eventually carry someone who refuses to walk, you become a crutch. That does not mean leaders should stop being empathetic. People all go through difficult seasons. Good employees struggle. Strong people sometimes need encouragement, patience, and support. But support must eventually connect to action. So ask yourself, does this person take ownership? Are they open to my feedback? Are they following through at all? Are they really making an effort? Are they changing any of the behaviors creating this problem? Or are they repeatedly draining the time, energy, and attention needed to lead everyone else? Like I said, that same peer that I supported, and I mean supported, I encouraged them over and over. I worked to bring out the very best in them. Assignments came along, I put their name on it, but every time they called me for something, it was negative. I knew I could no longer participate in conversations built around gossip, division, and resentment. That ended up being our last conversation. And honestly, once I stepped away, I realized how much energy that relationship had been consuming my time, and my energy meant for the right things. You cannot allow one chronically resistant person to consume the resources needed to build the rest of the team and support your peers. This again is losing yourself into that maze of negativity. At some point you have to say, I care about you. I'm willing to support you, but I cannot do the work for you. Here are the actions you need to take. The next step belongs to you. That's not abandoning someone. That is returning responsibility to its rightful owner. You can open a door. You can provide tools. You can offer guidance, but you cannot force someone to walk through it. Support people, coach people, believe in people, but do not allow someone who refuses to grow to pull the entire team backward. All right. So here is your leadership edge for this episode. When I look back at these 6 lessons not to lose yourself and regain better focus on your leadership, there's one common thread. Leadership requires more than good intentions. You can care deeply, you can work hard, you can model excellence, you can show empathy, and you can value an employee, but leadership is the willingness to see reality clearly and act on it before the situation becomes crisis. That means modeling and coaching, clarifying and confirming, supporting and holding accountable your people, valuing people and preparing others, working hard, working strategically, and showing compassion without removing personal responsibility. Those balances can be difficult. That's why leadership is difficult. And as my wife likes to say, give a little, take a little. Every painful lesson will become wisdom if you're willing to examine it honestly. So here's a few reflection questions I want you to consider this week. Grab your journal and maybe write that in there. Or if you're driving to work this morning or coming home from work, maybe answer these out loud in your head. But here's number 1. Where am I assuming people understand something I've never clearly explained? Number 2, what behavior am I currently tolerating that I know needs to be addressed? Number 3, who am I developing to become the next leader? Number 4, am I rewarding busy work or am I rewarding meaningful results? And lastly, what leadership lesson am I currently learning the hard way? Do not waste that lesson. Turn it into growth. Leadership will test your patience. Don't lose yourself. It will challenge your confidence. Don't lose yourself. And occasionally it'll break your heart, but it will also reveal that you are capable of becoming. You do not have to lead perfectly, but you do have to stay honest. Learn from the mistakes, have the conversations, build up your people, protect the standard, and become a little wiser every time leadership knocks you down. So those are my personal lessons that I have learned the hard way, and where I may have lost myself a little bit. Please don't let that happen to you. Lead on, lead strong. And that is my episode for today. So if this podcast made a positive impact, share it with someone who needs to hear it. I'd truly appreciate a quick rating or review on whatever platform you hear me on. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming up next on the Leading Life Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Zook. And remember, I want you to lead with purpose, live with intention, and keep becoming who you were meant to be. But most importantly, go out today and be the hero in somebody's story. I'll talk to you on the next episode. Have an amazing day. Bye.